Whenever you see it change shapes, go, ooh. Okay, you better turn it off or they're not going to hear a word I say. Now, in both of those demonstrations, you caught a glimpse of what your subconscious mind is doing. I told you it's going to be a lecture. Your subconscious mind, because it's always active. It's always looking out for you. It's always thinking under the surface. You did not make those little things seem like they were moving. Your subconscious brain naturally knows how to read shapes and shadows, and it naturally saw, yeah, okay, you don't have to think about it, those little things are moving. Or that diagram. It pops in and out, not by your conscious will, but simply this other mind of yours, this subconscious mind, is making it happen as it tries to make sense of the world. I think it's fascinating to read some of these books that are written by psychologists and neuroscientists, because it gives you a very eerie feeling that your brain has a mind of its own that you're not even aware of. Some of these neuroscientists have called it like your conscious mind, what's helping you hear what I'm saying now, is like a rider on top of an elephant. And the elephant is your subconscious with feelings and a mind of its own. And so it's sort of like you can will something to happen and you can think certain things and you think they're right, but you have inner nudgings and it doesn't seem like you're in harmony. And you still question maybe no matter how much you might think something is true or what have you. And some of the psychologists go on and say that we're not really born with a clean slate. If you will, it's like this subconscious mind of ours, so forth, has a tendency, a leaning that's built into our DNA. One psychologist by the name of Jonathan Haidt wrote a book, The Righteous Mind, and he says that it seems like we're built into two camps just from birth, that some of us have a leaning toward values that lift up questioning authority and justice. These are called liberal values. And there are others who want to celebrate tradition and standards and the respect of authority. These are more conservative folks. And each camp will see things in their own way and will look for things that justify views that they already have made up in their heart or in their subconscious mind. And so the Republicans and the Democrats, let's just get right down to it, will talk to each other but not with each other because each is convinced that they're right. Does this make sense? You know, other people have said, we make our choices emotionally, right here, and our conscious mind then tries to come up with reasons for the choices that we've made. Why am I saying all this in this lecture? Because this is, in many respects, the basis for understanding atheists and believers. Because oftentimes it's not let's just think through this thing about God, but it's sort of where we stand, and our subconscious mind has a lot to do with it. A philosopher once gave a story of two men in a field. One is a believer and one is an atheist. They're walking and the believer says, look, you cannot tell me that there is no God because look at these flowers, how beautiful they are. There has to have been a master gardener. And the atheist responded, but look at all the weeds and the thorns. You cannot tell me there is a master gardener. And the philosopher summarized by saying, each of these men was not looking for evidence to come up with their stance. They already knew what they believed. They just wanted to look for things that would support what they had in their subconscious mind, in their heart, if you will. The ones who believe in God may have this need to believe in God, so they're going to look automatically for things that buttress their belief, and vice versa with the atheist. I say all of this now to start this sermon. It was a long introduction, wasn't it? This is the preachy part. I hope what I just said to you gives background to Paul's struggle. Here's the nutshell of it. I don't understand my own actions. This is the conscious mind. This is the rider on the elephant talking, if you will. I do not do what I want, but the very thing I hate. I can will what is right, consciously or rationally, but I can't do it. It's like this elephant, right? It's real big. I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. He's conflicted. Are you conflicted? Well, as we grow, we certainly are conflicted. We don't understand why there's not harmony, if you will, why we still struggle and push and prod. There's discordance. How are you able, if you will, to return to the scientific image, how are you able to have the rider and the elephant go in tandem, to move in the same direction, to want the same things, to will the same things? Well, what happened to Paul? Paul saw the light, literally. If you turn to the 9th chapter of Acts, you know what happened to him. That light on the Damascus road slams him to the ground. He is blinded by the light. He hears, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? I am Jesus of Nazareth. And suddenly, Saul, the persecutor, the hater of Christians, Saul, who thought he was right, Saul, who had no question, no doubt whatsoever about his faith and what his mission should be, suddenly was brought to his knees by someone greater than himself. His brain got rebooted to change that image. And the prejudices and the biases that were stored up in his heart, in his subconscious, all those biases now suddenly were off the table because something bigger, greater than himself had revealed himself to him. He had that moment of transcendence, that moment when he wasn't the center of the universe. That moment when he suddenly had to understand that he is not necessarily right all the time. That moment when he had to open himself to the mystery that had revealed itself to him. Transcendence. To build a faith, we have to be able to understand that there is more to life than what we're thinking right now in our little conscious minds. That there is more to life than our slant, than our bent. How often we think, oh, if everyone were to see life like I see life, this would be a better world. No, not at all. Because we are flawed creatures seeing things only microscopically. Transcendence opens us up to revelation. Transcendence broadens our horizons so that we can, as I said last week, start seeing the fingerprints of God. So I ask you, when was the last time you felt that type of transcendence? And I'm not talking about the brutal kind that Paul encountered, but the beautiful kind that maybe caught you unaware. The kind that stopped you and opened your eyes and stopped all those internal conscious and subconscious processes, and you just said, wow. I remember one time very vividly for myself. I was in campus ministry at Mizzou. It was in 1987. When I was still young enough to take a group of kids through Kansas, up the mountain to Winter Park, Colorado, to go skiing. We skied a few days, had the bumps and the bruises still to show for that. And on the last day, we got up well before dawn to make the trip in one day back to Mizzou. And I'll never forget what happened. We loaded up the van, the kids were quiet, college students weren't saying a word, trying to get back to sleep. So I was left to my thoughts as I started the drive. And something happened, and I recorded these words 26 years ago, and it's like this. And here's what I said. The sun had just risen and was hanging lazily over the horizon. Around every turn on that twisty, narrow Berthoud Pass road awaited a new, breathtaking scene. Snow-capped peaks silhouetted against a deep blue sky, with blasts of frigid wind creating sparkling snow clouds at the summit, or birch, evergreens, and aspens standing as a family on the mountainside, with the sun delicately etching their shadows on a blanket of brilliant white snow. or cascading valleys so steep and deep that you couldn't even see the bottom. You could only see trees and snow disappearing into shadowy ravines. As the van crept along timidly, an eerie sensation engulfed me. The startling beauty of that mountainous world was coming home. As one panorama gave way to another, I began feeling as if I were on foreign but not alien soil. I felt as if I were driving through God's estate, and that at any moment around any curve, I could come face to face with the Almighty. I felt very close to the Creator. The divine breath blew against my cheek, and the thunder of God's heartbeat rang in my ears. It was on that mountain road that suddenly I didn't seem quite so important to myself. It was on that mountain road that I saw myself as I was, very microscopic in comparison to the majesty before me. It's a reboot of the brain, because when you decide and discover that your tendencies and your thoughts are not really the basis of the constitution of the universe, that's when you're able then to, as we said last week, get in touch with a God who is not manageable, controllable, or understandable. So, for you, when have you been able to sing How Great Thou Art in nature? When have you been able to encounter something out there that rebooted your brain and stopped all those internal processes of trying to understand things? Was it maybe when you were at the end of a dock watching the sun slip under the horizon over a beautiful lake? And you saw the crimsons and the pinks and the pastels drawn against the sky as it sank? Was that a time when it caught you? When you rebooted your brain? What about maybe you're on a scout camp out and you're in that field away from the city lights and you look up and you see the Milky Way, billions of stars, and you understand that you are not that center of the universe anymore? Or was it simply some morning when you were having coffee and you heard a bird sing, greeting the dawn in a different way, and as the world warmed up, you discovered your heart warming and not understanding why? Nature truly is a way, when you stop and look at it, to get in touch with one greater than yourself, the mysterious Creator. If we could only cultivate that feeling of respect, this almost sounds like an Earth Sunday sermon, doesn't it? If we could only cultivate that respect for nature, maybe we would be able to broaden our horizons and see God. Only if we could maybe feel like William Wordsworth felt when he saw a rainbow. You know, that great romantic poet. He said, "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began, so is it now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father to the man. And I should wish my days to be bound each to each in natural piety." My heart leaps up. Maybe it's not nature that leaps up your heart the next time you have a transcendent experience. It might be the time you remember when your child was born. That moment when your child greeted the world with birthing cries, and you felt the mystery engulf you. Or maybe the transcendent time that you remember is when you were listening to a symphony and a movement moved you in your heart, and the mind just went blank and you were opened up. Maybe it was when you were creating something or singing something, or even in this place on a Christmas Eve and you saw the candle lights. Transcendence enables you to see that the world is not about you. No, the world is broader and wider and higher and deeper than you can ever imagine. And that is when your mind opens up and you start to glance and name the mystery. So, friends, I have a very simple conclusion to this sermon. before we meet again, I would invite you to somehow, somewhere, take a moment and open yourself up to that broader picture of life. It might be nature. It might be a snowflake. I hope not, after all the snow we have, but it might be. You know, you could see something beautiful. Or something that you would see in an aquarium or a museum. You could see something that, wow. Or it might even be, who knows, a book with a cup of tea, and suddenly your mind is open to a new idea from someone else. It might be simply appreciating more the person who's very close to you and not take him or her for granted, but to see the mystery of that person. I don't know. I can't prescribe transcendence. I only know that transcendence is a human experience that is necessary, absolutely necessary, for us to do the human yet spiritual activity of repentance so that we can accept the grace of this mysterious God whom we will know better because of it. Someone once said, 2 men looked out beyond prison bars. One saw mud, the other stars. This week, friends, dare see stars.